Thank you everyone for being here today and taking part in watching this episode of the Lift Your Shop podcast. Today we have an amazing guest. We have Mike Collins out of Houston, Texas. He runs Collins Auto Care. So thank you so much for being with us today, Mike.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Awesome. So
Thank you for having me.
To get us started, I would love for you to kind of share your background, your story of kind of how you got started in this industry and how you've gotten to the point of where your shop is today.
Okay. I was started off back in the restaurant industry in the 90s, and I ran restaurants and just loved that industry for a long time. Unfortunately, as you're running restaurants, you end up working, back then every week was over 100 hours a week that I was working.
Wow.
And, when we had we started the shop kind of on the side, like a lot of places, a lot of people do. Started up in the garage in my house, and, realistically looking backwards, yes, I set it up like a business, but it was a hobby, never made any money doing it out of the house. But after, a few years of that, I did the restaurant business at the same time. And then my spare time, I would do the shop stuff. And, my son was born in 2000. And what really kind of triggered me to leave the restaurant industry behind and stuff was the fact that my son was, about 6 months old. And I'd kind of snuck in his room and gave him a kiss on his forehead, getting ready to go to work. And I realized he's 6 months old, and I really hadn't seen him awake, while he was awake in 6 months. And, I was like, something's got to change. And at the same time, I had, a lot of my friends and customers at the time that were having me do, performance work out of my garage, were constantly begging my wife to let me open a shop. They're like, he's got to open a shop. Problem I had with it was I was making really good money in the restaurant industry, and, was kind of used to a certain way of life. And, but it got to it really got to my wife, and she came up to me one day and she said, Mike, she goes, I have been rich with you and I've been poor with you. And it seems like you're happier when we're poor. She goes, go do what you love, go open a shop. So that's really how we kind of got, started. Our first real shop was a small little, I think it was probably 500, 600 square foot. It was in a strip mall type thing back behind a laundromat in a horrible, horrible part of town. And, we were focusing on one type of car back then, just doing performance work on them, building engines and things like that. And, it was a bad, bad, bad part of town. Like, we didn't want people coming there. It was so bad. But we outgrew that location in 6 months. Landlord was like, look, you got 13 cars outside. You can only fit 2 cars inside. You got to go. You're blocking all the other, tenants. So then we moved to a second location. That one was huge, compared, but, it was terrifying because it was 3 times the amount of rent. So we were going from like 500 or 600 square foot to 1,500 square foot, or sorry, 7,500 square foot. And, the rent was $1,500, and it was terrifying back then. But, as soon as we got into it, we just started spitting that work, and it became easy money. It's funny to look back now at the small dollar amounts that were terrifying when you're not making any money and you're really starting out. From that point, we went to a different shop, different location for a little while. And then we got to a point where most of our customers were really wanting us to work on their regular vehicles. Since we just did performance work, we refused any regular vehicle work, general mechanics type stuff. And enough customers really begged us to where we changed locations at that point and got a more suitable location that was 8 bays. And we divided it up. The front 4 bays were general automotive. The rear 4 bays were performance. Kind of changed some of the rules that we did, gave the general automotive priority. And then basically just took in performance work on our own set of rules of, we'll get to it when we get to it. As long as you're okay with that, you can drop it off. Over time, it was more and more obvious that we were going to make a lot more money doing general automotive than we did performance. And, I was proud of myself, and it was really hard to walk away from the performance industry just because of my reputation.
Yep.
And, one of the things I was always proud of at the time that I could stand up and say is we had cars from all 50 states, including Hawaii and Alaska, that had been shipped to us to build cars for them. but it's the outside looking in. Everybody's like, oh, you're in this magazine, you're on all these websites, you're constantly getting covered, like everybody talks about you, you must be rich. I wasn't. I wasn't making any money. Um, in fact, in the year we stopped working on performance, we only had done $247,000 for that year, which to me, not knowing any better, I thought it was okay because we were growing every year. Every year was a little bit better.
Yeah.
And, you know, I knew how to read a P&L because I learned that in the restaurant business. So I'd look at my P&L every single month, and I'd look at it and go, okay, well, we made a little bit of money. And by little bit, I mean little bit. And, but everything was better. The problem was, is knowing how to read a P&L in one industry doesn't mean you know how to read it in another industry. Yeah. I didn't know what our benchmarks were supposed to be. I didn't know what our goals in each category should be at the time. And it wasn't until I joined a coaching company that I really learned, started learning what those numbers meant and how to tweak them and where our budget should be.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if you don't mind me interjecting here, you mentioned that reading a P&L in the restaurant industry versus the auto repair industry is obviously different. And you kind of learned where some of those benchmarks. Do you mind sharing some of your goals of benchmarks within the P&L while we're kind of on this topic?
Sure. Most shops out there and most coaching companies always preach the exact same numbers. One of the things that you really look at in that kind of stuff is, where are you? Where's your location? Where's your shop located? Who are your competitors? What kind of pricing can you get in your area? So, any company or person that comes in and says, hey, your GP needs to be 60%, that's a blanket statement that doesn't cover for everybody. Mm-hmm. Not everybody can hit that 60%. A lot of places can be very profitable off of 50%. I know a shop that's really profitable off of 48%. Not saying you should keep going lower and lower and lower. Yeah. And your goal should be that 60%. You should kind of go with the norm. 60 there, and your net goal should be around the 20% mark. Mm-hmm. Those are good benchmarks to measure against, but they're not solid rules. And I think a lot of people get lost in that, and they don't realize that every shop and every location is a little bit different. Your mix of parts may be different. The type of work you do may be different. If you're super heavy on tires, you're not gonna hit your 60%.
Yeah.
Or at least it's hard without tweaking other things. Mm-hmm. For a shop like mine, if we did a whole bunch of tires, like the more tires we do every month, I'll see that 60% niche down more and more and more and more, even though we do heavy repair, we do servicing, we do, any number of programming, pretty much everything. But the more tires hit, the more it is. And I've got to look at it, almost separately, but just realizing that 60% is going to go down a little bit. Then you got to look at, your marketing, rent, those have assigned percentages. Mm-hmm. The way we do things is we combine marketing and rent together, to have our percentage that we shoot a goal for. And I think that's a good idea in general, because the better location you have, the less you have to spend on marketing, but you're going to pay more for rent. So you can pay more for rent and lower your marketing budget a little bit to still hit those percentages. But if you have a really bad location, your rent's probably really cheap, but you're going to have to spend a whole lot more money on marketing. Mm-hmm. So, we kind of group those together.
What percentages do you look at there for your grouping? It's like 13, 15% around there?
Right around 13.
Okay, cool.
Your labor percentage, that's going to be, cost of good labor. That's, most, depending on if you're flat rate or not, cost of good labor is really where we stick our, all of our technicians, of course, mm-hmm. As far as flat rate technicians. Our goal on that is usually about 15%. I typically operate about 18%, at least over the past year and a half. I do flat rate a little different than a lot of shops out there because I'm a big believer in it.
Yep.
But I'm also a big believer in taking care of my staff. So essentially my rule in my shop is, if you're doing your job, if you're like, because we measure every bit. We measure the tech quotes. We look at, down to the tech close ratio. Like, what are the service advisors close ratio, not just over the entire shop, but on each individual technician. So we look at that, and that'll tell us, okay, we can focus in and say, well, I've got a technician that's, got a really high tech quote average, but if their close ratio is like 15%, we're going, whoa, something's going on. And, I'm having conversations with the service advisor to figure out what's going on. I'm having, conversations with the technician. And usually in a situation like that, it comes down to, okay, the service advisors don't trust that technician yet.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're new and they haven't just built that relationship where they can fully build that trust. So they're not selling as much of their work. So in a situation like that, the technician's doing their job. They're inspecting all the vehicles. They're giving good inspections, everything else, but the service advisors don't quite trust them yet. Yes, I'm talking to the service advisors, but I'm also going to take care of that technician in the meantime.
Mm-hmm.
When there's factors outside of their control, that's when I'll step in and it's kind of like a guarantee.
Yeah.
Even though it's not like a written guarantee. My team knows that no matter what, I'm going to take care of them. As long as they are doing what they're supposed to be doing, they will never go hungry. And, I think that's where flat rate gets a bad name. I've been watching a lot of the posts on Facebook, and it seems to be a real hot topic right now as everybody's bashing flat rate. Flat rate's awesome if you get the right people in there. My ATEX, when I hired my ATEX, they almost begged me for a flat rate. They're like, you are a flat rate shop, right? Absolutely. It's the technicians that tend to be slower. They tend to be not as productive. Maybe they're newer. Those are the ones that are scared of flat rate. Either that, or you've got ones out there where, unfortunately, some shops have really taken advantage of people. Mm-hmm. And they're really not taking care of their team when they need to be taking care of the team. If you have an owner that's not doing their job, not doing the right marketing, not getting the car count in there, and the technicians don't have enough cars to work on, that's not the technician's fault. That's the owner's fault. As long as the service advisors are answering the phone. There's a bunch of pieces of this puzzle. Yep. If you got all your marketing in place and your car count's not there, listen to your phone calls. That'll tell you a whole lot, because if your service advisors are not converting those phone calls into traffic coming in the door, then you're going to think your marketing's not working when it really is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for that. And you hit on a little bit about finding those right employees and how so you want to elaborate a little bit I know this is a hot topic for a lot of people, everyone's trying to find people to work. So how do you go about finding these right people for your shop?
I used to be right there with the people that complain and say, there's no technicians, I've got, Indeed ads and everything else. And, I used to say those exact same things until one day somebody called me, a fellow shop owner called me out on it. He goes, are you going scorched earth approach on this? And I'm like, yeah, I'm looking every day. And he looked at me and goes, Mike, are you going scorched earth approach? And I looked at him and I had to be honest. And I was like, I'm not. And he goes, try it. He goes, just like anything else, dig in there and make it part of your job for a little while. And I said, okay, I'll make that commitment. So I put it on my schedule. Every day I'd spend, 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening. So an hour a day I'd spend. And, I'd run, my Indeed, ZipRecruiter, all of those type of ads. I'd get on every single thing I could think of, post ads, and then not only post ads, but go in the background and start doing searches and just looking and accumulating data. And in the beginning, it was like, I wasn't getting any hits. I was getting basic, same thing everybody else is getting. Oh, there's nobody there. There's nobody there. The more I looked, the more I kind of became addicted to looking, because I started learning more and more about people, how they were posting, what they were looking for. And I just started sending out messages, and I got a whole lot of no's, and I didn't let it discourage me. I just kept at it. And it took a while, took a couple of months for it to gain traction, but doing it every single day, and I'm talking 7 days a week, every day, suddenly after a couple of months, my inbox started filling up. My text messages, I started getting text messages. Next thing I knew, I was swimming in technicians. I had more technicians hit me up than I knew what to do with. And I found that I just kind of kept that ball rolling, where I kept communication with them. And, some of the ones that I didn't hire, I made it really clear, hey, save my personal cell phone number. I love talking with people in this industry. I love being able to reach out. And I always tell them, you may not be working here, but and you're working somewhere else. But if you run into a car or something like that where you don't, no, you can't quite figure it out and need some help, shoot me a message. I got technicians here. We can, network like that. So I use it as that, but I also use it to store their information. And like every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every holiday, things like this. If I know their birthday, I put it in my phone and I will send them messages, text messages on those days. So I've got a list of people that I just, one at a time, and I make it personal. I don't send a group blast, message out.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, I've got a whole section of T's in my phone of tech, so-and-so tech, it's just everyone has tech in front of their name. And I just go down there and send them a personal message every single holiday and stuff like that. And some of them where I really liked, if I really liked them and I know that they found some place that they liked, and they didn't come work for me. About every 6 months, I'll shoot them a message. Hey, how are you doing? How you liking it over there? So-and-so treating you all right? And just kind of keeping that network going. So, I've built it up to a point now where I kind of have this almost endless supply of technicians that I can just kind of, pull into. The thing that it is like, I don't stop. Even though I'm not looking for techs right now, I'm still looking for techs. I don't ever stop.
That's phenomenal to share there. And I'm sure a lot of people would love to have that pipeline for themselves, that kind of warm bench of like, oh, I need someone now. Where do I go? And I think you have a very solid process on how to do that. But I think another thing I would love for you to touch on is now, how did you build a culture where people like now these techs now want to come work for you, and there's a reason why. So how did you go about building the right culture that kind of attracted them? Like, oh, the grass is greener over there at Collins Auto Care. How do I get it to be a part of that?
Yeah, so culture has always been like since day one for me. When I decided to make a business, it was almost silly and cute. My wife used to laugh at me because, back in the day in the garage, I made myself a P&L. It was teeny tiny and it was cute, but I made myself a bank account. I did all this stuff ahead of time because I always said I'm going to run this like a business. And one of the things, like one of my dreams and passions, is having a culture in the shop, in your workplace, and that is being able to treat everybody like family, being able to treat everybody like a team, and not just like, oh, you're my employee, do this. That's not how you treat people. Mm-hmm. So it really starts with how you treat people. It starts with genuinely caring about people. One of the things that I do every single day without fail, 100% of the time, I don't care what's going on, how busy I am. When I get there in the morning, I walk in there and I've got my backpack on, usually a lunch in my hand. I start at my very last bay and I go and I talk to the technician, not about work, not about what he's working on at all. I asked him, did you cook anything for dinner last night? Did you make your wife something? That particular tech in that last bay, we did goal sheets not that long ago. And I know he wanted to start cooking for his wife twice a week. So I check on him. Did you cook? What'd you cook this week? Have that personal touch and conversation. And then I move to the next tech. And I do that before I even set my stuff down, because I don't want to take a chance on getting distracted. If I go in there and set my stuff down, a phone call may get transferred to me, or, and then I'll, just get caught up in the day. So it's that important to me that I don't set my stuff down. I talk to every single person's, on the way to the office. And then before I leave every day, I walk the same walk all the way down. Or if they're going to be leaving before me, I stop what I'm doing. I walk down, talk to every single person again. That's part of what it is. Another part of it is sharing your dream. If you share your dream, first off, you got to believe in your own dream. You got to believe in yourself and believe that you're not going to fail no matter what. You're going to be successful and you're going to bring these people with you. And if you truly believe that, you have to share it with your team. And if you share it with your team, they'll start to believe too. Not only will they start to believe in you, they believe in themselves. And it's just this naturally occurring thing that starts to happen. And you end up with people that want to see you succeed because they know that they're coming along for the ride. There's other things that we did, like the very first, when COVID first hit, I started looking around the shop and I'm like, because all my techs were starting to get text messages from their friends that worked in dealerships and other shops and things like that saying, man, you still got a job? I just got laid off. They laid off half the dealership, and I started seeing the looks on everybody's face. So I was like, okay, everybody come here.
Yeah.
I called a meeting and I told everybody, I just want to let you know right now, we're not playing this game. I said, we're going to be more successful than anybody else because everybody else is taking the wrong approach on this.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we're going to do. I want y'all to feel comfortable. I don't want you to feel like you're going to lose your job. Every one of you is on a guarantee right now until further notice. So your money's fine. I said, not only are we not going to lay anybody off, we're actively looking to hire people. So if you're getting all these text messages and you have an all-star that would never leave another shop before, you send them here. We are looking to hire people. I said, we are going to grow during this time. And I just kind of pumped them all up. And I gave them that same belief. It's like they were in despair because they were getting all this bad news all at the same time. And I was like, we're not playing that. Like, we're going to win here. And that lifted them all up. And suddenly, holy crap, we're having record month after record month after record month. And they're like rocking and rolling. And they're high-fiving, nonstop all the time. And, because they're looking around, they're like, the rest of the world's burning down and we're kicking butt over here.
That is awesome.
So things like that really build culture. Another thing that I've always done is and I changed it a little this year. I've always in the past recommended books to my team. And depending on what they're going through in life and stuff like that, I'll hand them a book and say, hey, go, read this. I'm here to change their lives. That's my personal passion. I want to lift them up and actually change their lives, not just at work, but at home. I want them to have things that I didn't have access to when I was younger, things that I didn't know about. My life has significantly changed in the past few years, and for the better. And I want to share that. It's like this happy feeling that I want everybody around me to feel this way. So I realized at the end of last year that I wasn't gaining enough traction in making a difference in their lives. Yeah, they're making good paychecks. Yeah, they're happy coming to work, but I wasn't having the impact I wanted to. So I did something a little controversial this year. Starting in the beginning of the year, I started doing mandatory book reading. And I laid it down and I flat out told them, I was like, I am here to change y'all's lives. And what I've done in the past isn't happening quick enough. I said, we're not guaranteed any time on this planet. I'm getting older. I'm running out of time. I want to make sure that I can make a difference because I promised y'all I would. And so this is what we're going to do. Mandatory book reading. We're going to assign a book. We're going to give you X number of weeks to read it. And if you don't finish reading it by that time, guess what? You get an unpaid vacation until you finish it. And they were grumbling and grumbling and grumbling. And a couple of them were like, okay. And we assigned the first book. And the cool thing is the first book I let my GM pick out. He actually picked out one that I wouldn't have picked out. It was a little hard. Like I probably would have done that maybe book 2 or 3, but it worked well. It was called Crucial Conversations. And the most amazing thing happened when we started doing the required reading. We started hearing on the floor all the team members starting to talk about the book and starting to talk about things. And through just that first book, there were 5 crucial conversations that were had that I personally know of, where the person was too afraid to have that conversation, but needed to prior to reading the book. And a couple of those were like life-changing, including one person who turned in her notice to me. And she told me, I'm glad you made me read this book because I can sit down and have this conversation with you. And it was a wonderful conversation. We had the best exit interview ever, and she still works for me.
Wow. I love that. I love that idea of mandatory. I would have never guessed going that route into like promoting a culture. But I mean, I love reading, and so I mean, I would have loved it. I can easily see how some people are like, I gotta work all day, and then you're gonna make me go home and read a book. Like, come on. But I love the direction that you kind of have created there. I mean, I'm envious. That sounds super fun. And so at what point did you? I guess are you satisfied with the culture of where it is? And if not, what are you hoping to still build upon it to make it to kind of your dream culture like you've talked about?
I'm not satisfied with it. for a couple reasons. One, I don't think you should ever be satisfied with it, because then you just kind of think it's okay and you
Yep.
start flipping on certain things. So,
Mhm.
for one, I'll never be satisfied with it. But for two, you know, we're not perfect by any means. There's times where, we got a rock and roll week and the culture's so amazing that I will stop in the middle of the shop and just look around and go, we're there. And then the following week, it's like, what is going on? Because I mean, it's people.
Yeah.
People have good moods, bad moods. They're affected by the weather. It's so you're constantly having to, look for new things and tweak things and change things up, because what worked last week may not work this week.
Mhm.
But it might work next week. So you just kind of stick it in your bag of tricks and you keep going with it. But it is. I spend a lot of time with my GM right now. He struggles with people. He's good at everything that he does, but he struggles with people, and he's working on it. I mean, he's been constantly working on it. But we were having a conversation a few months back, and my upstairs office area and break room area has windows that look out over the shop. And we were having a serious conversation, and he's sitting down at the end of the table, and I'm standing up talking to him, but looking out the window. And, I'd never thought to tell anybody this before, because I guess I just didn't realize that, I did it. But he thought I wasn't paying attention or taking it seriously. And I turned to him and I was like, Tim, I'm hearing everything you say. I said, but we're talking about the staff. And I'm watching what the staff's doing. I'm watching every movement they make. I'm studying them. It's people watching at its finest.
Yeah.
It is, you watch them when they're doing their normal stuff, like, technician walking around, carrying a tool, setting it down on his table, just watching how fast they're watching, how fast they're walking, how fast they're working, how they set something down. Because the next time, if you study that and know what their normal movements are, the next time that technician sets something down a little too hard or moves a little too fast, something's not quite right.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not be escalated to the point where they're angry yet, but something is going on. So boom, instant conversation. I go down there and I don't talk to them about setting their tool down too hard. I don't talk to them about that kind of stuff. I just ask them how they're doing. Start talking to them about their day, their life, what's going on in their home, things like that. In a not just a conversation way, not like, hey, you're in trouble, what's going on? It's just, you start digging for it before something happens. And the only way to do that is by studying your people the way, you study anything, you study fine art, or, people that are really, really good at cars, they study cars nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in the performance industry, I read nonstop and watched, YouTube videos and watched welding videos. I studied it.
Yeah.
And so I'm in the people business. As shop owners, we're in the people business, and we need to study the people in this with the same passion that we study anything else that we want to be really good at.
Man, yeah, I love the personal awareness there too. Just like kind of, I mean, yes, you're watching them, but you're watching them to learn from them, to like truly understand them, to then really cultivate the culture, and understanding when maybe that you can see them kind of straying off a certain path, and like, oh, I know how to reel them back in, and in order to make sure that they're still happy and enjoying coming to work. So yeah, I just everything about the culture that you've been able to describe to me. I love what you have built, and I love that you also are not satisfied in terms of just like you're consistently working on making it better. And so on a completely different topic in a sense, I know like right now you've gotten to the point of now you have that 10-day shop, you have a strong culture, everything along those lines. So you're obviously now in an amazing trajectory of where you want to go. But if you were to start from the beginning and where you were, what would you change? What would you suggest for these shop owners to like you would go about doing differently that then would have kind of changed the course of where you were, or would it be the same? Would you want the same journey?
I love my journey just because it was a rough journey for a long time. There were lawsuits along the way that I got involved with, that directly affected me, to where for 3 years we didn't know if we were going to lose the building we were in, because, I had a landlord who turned out to not actually own the land, but we had a contract with her, and then the actual owner, it turned into a mess, and
Yeah.
it stunted our growth. So, but even going through all of that kind of stuff, that's what taught me. It's what built me up, and it's what hardened me and exposed me to being able to walk through fire and go, okay, we can do this. So I really wouldn't change anything, no matter how hard it was, because I wouldn't be where I am today without it. But, if I had to give like advice to a shop owner that, was starting out, or if I had to start out from scratch, which I think is what the question was, getting to.
Yes.
For one, I'd hire a coaching company as the second you could. Doesn't matter who it is, get in front of a coach. I didn't do it for a long time because I was afraid of what it cost. In fact, the very first month when I signed up with a coaching company, I was terrified of it, but I was so broken that I needed a change. Mm-hmm. And it was terrifying because the first month's dues or, payment for them was more than I had made net the previous year.
Oh, wow.
And that particular coach even said, you should probably look at my free stuff for a little while and build up and try to get a little bit of money before you sign up. Like, you're not quite there yet. And I got off the phone with that person and I said, no, I'm changing my life today. I can't live like this. I am changing my life today. And I signed up and I paid it on a credit card that I didn't know how I was going to pay next month. But it worked. The very first month we doubled our sales. So, for people that, no matter what coach they choose and no matter how broke you are, get in front of a coach and try to find one that doesn't have contracts, just in case. But so yeah, I would say do that. Second thing I would say is don't be afraid to fire people. Along the way, I've been guilty of this myself. I think all of us have. Is you get somebody that is good or consistent or something where you're comfortable, and you're like, well, what if I can't find somebody else? At least I know this evil. But the problem is the longer they're there, the more destruction they're causing in your shop.
Yeah.
And I had a tech a year ago that we were a little guilty of on this, that we let stay a little too long because we thought we could save this person, and we thought we could just teach them the ways. And they turned out to be such a huge cancer in the shop that even though they were turning 90 hours a week, like consistently, and no comebacks at the time and things like that, it was like, this person's so bad, like getting everybody else riled up. Well, we waited too long and we fired this person. And that same month, we lost 3 other people because of that person. Not because we fired them, but because we waited too long. And it crashed the culture. And, that's one of the things. It's like, wait a second, we just did what we said we would never do, and we sacrificed culture for production. And, we didn't mean to do it. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't like we said, hey, we're going to sacrifice this for that. It was, no, we can help this person. Like, there's a good person in there. We see the good person. We just got to help them, come around. Mm-hmm. When in all actuality, we got to protect the team. And that's kind of where I'm at now. It's like, wait a second, is this person hurting the team? Not is it a failure on my part to help lift this person up and change their life. It is, wait a second, are they hurting the team? And if they're hurting the team, they got to go. I don't care what they're producing. And I tell you what, it's, along the years learning this lesson, every single time I've never regretted it, because every single time the shop started turning more hours once we fired that person. The rest of the team picked it up, kicked it into overdrive, and it just started hustling. It's been a boost forward. But a cancer in your shop will destroy it. So don't be afraid to get rid of people that are like that.
Yeah, and I love that. So I come from a big sports background. I played baseball all through college, and so I know the importance of that team unity. And so you see it like when a team is happy and cohesive, you can see how much success they have. But when there's even one person that kind of deters in their mindset and then kind of starts planting these negative seeds in other people, you can just see how fast it just kind of crumble down. And so just it's that one single person. And so that's really important, I think. And I love how then also you talked about getting a coach, and like with any team, can you imagine a team without a coach? There's no such thing. And so the same with any business. Why would a business and leading a business, why would you not need a coach? And then you yourself are the coach of your business, of your team. And so that's I kind of love how all those things have kind of come together for us in terms of this leadership and those qualities. And so in terms of being a leader, what are the things that you take kind of the most pride in terms of being kind of a great leader?
It's funny. It's funny you asked that, because year and a half ago, if you would have asked me that, I would have said, I don't know what it is to be a leader. I can't be a leader. That's not who I am. And, I started reading leader books and started asking, different people, like, I don't know how to do this. Like, how do you lead? Like, I know what it looks like on TV. I know what a coach is, but there's a difference between a coach and a leader. And, you got a football coach. Yeah, it's a great coach, but the coach isn't the leader. Typically it's a person on the team that's out there playing that turns out to be the leader. Mm-hmm. And so my journey along the way, and actually I make a vision board every year. And one of the things I put on my vision board at the beginning of 2021 was leader, like right in the center, leader. And it's because it's like, I want to become a leader. How do I do this? And it turned out I did it on accident, and I didn't realize I did it until I was looking at my vision board at the end of the year going, I accomplished everything on here except for 2 things that I postponed intentionally. Mm-hmm. But I looked at that leader thing and I went, I get it. Like, I finally understand it. And it's all the stuff that everybody's going to say. It's you got to lead by example. Yep. You have to hold yourself accountable more than, you're holding anybody else accountable. Mm-hmm. If they don't see you being, holding yourself accountable, they're not going to respect you and hold themselves accountable, or even listen to you when, like, if I have a rule of, give you an example. We went to mandatory shirts being tucked in about 6 months ago, mainly because I saw a technician somewhere else when I was going to pick up parts, and I went, that tech looks sharp. They were tucked in. I mean, they were just like, everything about them was like sharp. And I walked back to my team and I looked and I'm like, they don't look bad, but they're just like, they're clean. They're well dressed, but they're just missing one little thing. So I started tucking my shirt in that day, because I'd wear like polos and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
The ones that were cut right to wear untucked, but I said, I'm going to start tucking my shirt in. So I tucked my shirt in every single day for 2 weeks straight. And then in one of our meetings, I said, here's what we're doing, guys. Here's why we're doing it. And I said, look at me right now. I was like, I look clean cut. I look sharp, right? And then I untucked my shirt. I said, look at me now. I'm ready to go to a ball game or something, right? And they started kind of laughing. And I said, we're professionals. I was like, for the same reason, I don't allow y'all to call each other or yourselves mechanics, because y'all aren't. Y'all are technicians. We're professionals. I want people to see you with having the same pride that I see you with. I want our customers to look at you in that way and think, wow, they're sharp looking, and I'm happy they're working on my car. And, that kind of hit home to them. But, it's doing that. It's talking in front of them. It is, getting over the fear of actually, having a one-to-many where you're, having a one-to-one's easy. You're just having a conversation with one person. Getting in front of, in my case, 14 people, I was nervous for a while, and I didn't do well with it. But eventually I just made myself start doing it. And I was like, no excuses. This is what I'm doing every week at this time. And the more I did it, the easier it got. The easier it got, the more it got just like a normal conversation where I could just talk to them. And they started listening and hearing and creating, it started creating a sideways pressure amongst everybody, because, I had one technician come up to me and say, we want to make sure that what you want is getting done. So we're not going to allow each other to stray from that. We're going to hold each other accountable. And that meant like the world to me, because they bought in, like they believe, and they believe enough that they're going to start making sideways pressure on each other. Mm-hmm. They're going to police each other. Yes.
That's for sure the goal right there, where the culture is working is when the others are speaking to it. Like they're just like holding each other accountable on top of what you're obviously leading by a very well example. And I love how you didn't right away just tell them, yes, you need to tuck your shirts in because I think it looks more professional. You did it first, and you led by example for a little bit without even saying anything. And then after setting that example, setting that in their mind of, oh, I didn't even realize he did anything different, but now they can visually see the difference. I love how you led that way, and it probably held true a lot stronger than if you were just that day you came up with that idea and then you walked up to all of them, told them this is what we're doing. It probably just would not have held the same clout with them as compared to what you did. So I do love that. Well, you have shared some amazing tidbits with us today in terms of both finding the right people and then really cultivating that culture that you want, and kind of being a leader of a shop that you'd be proud of. And I think, I mean, I know you are not currently satisfied, and you're I can tell you're a person that's always looking for more growth, which I love. But from a person just listening to your story currently for the very first time, this is the first time that we've spoken about this. I can say that you can be proud of the culture that you and kind of the mantra that you have at your shop, because it's something that for me, I know I'm envious of, and I want our company to be that sort of way. And that's a little bit different with my company since we're kind of all virtual and we don't all need to be in the same place at the same time, but there's no excuse in terms of like still being able to understand every member of my team the way I want to, and really creating a culture that they, even if they don't see me in person, that they understand of what our dreams are together for this company, what we want to accomplish. So I do thank you for that, because I definitely have taken some amazing notes on this. So to part with us today, usually I ask, what are kind of your top 3 things that you would recommend for any shop owner to do to kind of change how they should be doing things. But we talked a lot about leadership in books, and so I would love for you to recommend your favorite leadership book that you think every shop owner should read, and why.
Oh, that's easy. Leadership and Self-Deception. That
Okay.
is my life-changing book. You got to read it twice. You got to read it at least twice, though.
Okay. And who is that by?
I think it's done by the Arbiter Institute.
Okay. And so why is that your go-to?
It teaches you how to communicate. It teaches you how to really pay attention to other people and put yourself in their shoes and really think about what somebody else is going through before you talk. And it allows you to like connect with people. Mm-hmm. So give an example. It when I say it changed my life, I mean, it seriously changed my life, because it changed my relationship with my team. It's my wife, my son. The biggest one was my son. And I remember the day that the light bulb truly went off, because, my son when he was a teenager, teenagers are teenagers, they got hormones.
Yeah.
And, he kind of got mad about something, and he came up to me and he's just, angry and just kind of, in my space. And, before that clicked me from that book, I would have gotten mad just, and yelled at him and been just like, like a gorilla.
Yeah.
But in that instance, I immediately thought, he's a teenager. He's got hormones that he can't even control right now. Like, some of this stuff's out of his control. He doesn't know how to communicate. I've never taken the time to teach him how to communicate, because I didn't know how to communicate. And like all these thoughts started just rushing through my head. And then I looked at him and I felt like I hurt for him because he was so angry. And I looked at him and I said, Corbin, I love you. And I wrapped my arms around him and I said, is there anything I can do to make this better? And it just, like, all the tension in his body, I felt just go away. And from that point on, we talk all the time. Like, it literally changed my life.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much today, Mike. If for those people that may be interested in like reaching out to you, maybe for just questions, mentorship, anything like that, what would be the best way for them to contact and reach you?
Probably email would probably really be the best. It's Mike, Mike, at Collins Auto Care, COLLINSAUTOCARE.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you again, Mike, so much for today. I really appreciate your time and the knowledge that you really dropped for us. I'm sure a lot of auto shop owners, hopefully they listen. If you listen this far, thank you so much for listening this far. But I'm sure that you have taken a lot of notes in terms of what things you can do to improve your shop culture. So thank you all for listening today, and looking forward to seeing you guys in the next one.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.